Good evening and thank you for joining us on ERi-TV. This is English News Broadcast live from the headquarters in Asmara at exactly 10:30 p.m. Today is Sunday, 19th of February, 2023. First, the top stars. Interview of ERi-TV and Radio Dimtsa Hafash with President Afwerki. Training on weaving to hearing impaired citizens. African states turned down on debt relief. Five killed in Israeli strike on Damascus, Syria. The second part of the interview President Afwerki conducted with the local media outlets yesterday, 18 February, in Asmara, focused on the TPLF's intuitive political files and message to the people of Tigray on bilateral ties between Eritrea and Somalia and Gulf countries. Following is the full report.
The second part of the interview President Afwerki conducted with the local media outlets yesterday, 18th February, in Asmara, focused on the TPLF's visceral political follies and message to the people of Tigray on bilateral ties between Eritrea and Somalia and Gulf countries. President Isias underlined that the quagmire triggered by TPLF's war of insurrection must be seen in its cumulative context. It is indeed inextricably linked with the erroneous political objectives from its genesis as articulated in the manifesto of its formative years in the 1970s. While the people of Tigray had every right to fight together with other oppressed nationalities for justice and equality within Ethiopia, the TPLF secessionist agenda was untenable and a distortion of the legitimate aspirations of the people of Tigray. At the time, the distorted political objective was ultimately rectified after extensive consultations that took several years, on the basis of which we were able to subsequently cultivate ties of cooperation. Immediately after the fall of the Derg regime, however, President Isias said that the TPLF reverted to a dualist policy of fomenting ethnic polarization to maintain its monopolistic control of Ethiopia, while also creating conditions of fragmentation as a residual option. The umbrella organization ERi-TV that it created was designed to serve its total domination of economic, political and military power to the exclusion of others, rather than serving as a vehicle for cementing harmony and national cohesion in Ethiopia. The 1994 Constitution similarly contained Article 39 that allowed secession and other provisions that corrode national unity and social cohesion. The TPLF's unabashedly pronounced strategy included sowing discord and planting time bombs here and there that it could detonate to create perpetual conflict in the event that its monopoly of power was challenged. The TPLF believed that it can achieve its distorted policy objectives only by allying with and becoming subservient to a major power. In this respect, the border war that it unleashed against Eritrea in 1998 under the pretext of quote-unquote dispute over Badime and its invasion of Somalia in 2006 were essentially extraneous policies. The TPLF was ousted from power in 2018, but instead of rectifying its toxic policies, it unleashed the destructive and costly offensives that raged for 2 years. The TPLF's policies and its reckless offensives do not represent the interests of the people of Tigray, who have no problem to live in peace with other nationalities in Ethiopia and their Eritrean neighbors. There are accordingly times to say enough is enough, a time to draw appropriate lessons both for the people of Tigray and the region as a whole. Regarding bilateral ties between Eritrea and Somalia, President Isias elaborated the historical realities that precipitated a political vacuum in Somalia after the fall of the Siad Barre government. Somalia's ethnic and religious uniqueness notwithstanding, myriad external interventions coupled with internal weaknesses led to clan politics and debilitating instability. Dubbed as quote-unquote a failed state, Chronic instability and the threat of terrorism was exploited by external forces to perpetuate their presence in Somalia. In the circumstances, the urgent task is for restitution of a sovereign Somalia that can stand on its 2 feet. This will require bolstering its sovereign institutions, including credible defense forces. Eritrea is playing its modest part in this endeavor. This is also buttressed with similar contributions from Somalia's immediate neighbors. These modest efforts must be seen as enabling contributions and not as a substitute to the central endeavors of Somalia itself. What must be recognized is Somalia's substantive potential contribution to the region in terms of its geostrategic importance. Considerable resources such as agriculture, fisheries, and possibly oil and gas, but above all, the presence of large communities in the neighboring countries, vital for lubricating and cementing people to people. On bilateral relations with Kenya, President Isaias noted that both countries had embarked on nurturing close bilateral ties in the early 1990s during President Arap Moi's tenure, but the relationship remained strained afterwards for a variety of reasons. President Ruto's initiative and his recent visit to Asmara contributed to revive the relationship today. This is anchored not only on enhancing bilateral ties, but also on alignment of perspectives and views of bolstering regional cooperation that forestalls unhelpful external meddling. President Ruto's initiative has also resulted in Eritrea's decision to resume its membership in IGAD. The desire is to revitalize IGAD as an effective regional institution for promoting peace and stability, as well as economic cooperation among the member states on the basis of synergy and complementarity. Eritrea and Kenya have also agreed to work out concrete mechanisms and institutions of coordination to facilitate their bilateral cooperation on a variety of sectors. Regarding relations with Gulf countries, President Isaias expounded on the negative ramifications for cooperation in the wider Horn of Africa or Red Sea region that prevailed in previous decades as a result of geopolitical power games. The Gulf region was seen as the sphere of influence of Western powers in the context of the policy of containment. This situation is gradually changing in tandem and in correlation with unfolding global changes. Gulf countries are diversifying and cultivating solid economic ties with Asia and other parts of the world. This trend is entailing more profound ties between the Gulf states as well as with the countries of the Horn of Africa.
The Asmara Elementary and Junior School for the Hearing Impaired Citizen organized 2 years training on weaving to its 30 students. Speaking at the conclusion event of the training organized on 18th February, Mr. Tesfaldes Birhane, director of the school, said that the objective of the training was to develop the capacity of the students with a view to enable them improve their livelihoods with the trainings they were provided. Mr. Ta'aggas Tesfai, chairman of the Parents Committee, on his part, commending for organizing the training, called for its sustainability. At the occasion, the trainees organized exhibition, showcast, and products. International news follows after a short break. Stay tuned. African countries are forced into unfair deals by the international financial system, which turns them down on debt relief and charges extortionate interest rates. The UN Secretary General The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has stated the UN chief delivered his remark at the opening ceremony of the annual African Union Summit, stating, with the notion that Africa has achieved significant progress so far in terms of development. However, he stressed that action is still needed for Africa, namely economic action. According to Guterres, Africa is particularly rich in potential, which can be said for global support. Investing in Africa's pathway to prosperity requires finance. He underlined it, recalling that African countries are repeatedly abandoned and neglected by global financial institutions. In his address to the Assembly, he called for far-reaching reforms aimed at altering the very structure of international finance to make it beneficial for developing countries, especially those in Africa, and transform it to serve the interests of the most vulnerable. He stated that the world needs a new debt architecture that provides debt relief and restructuring to the countries with a heavy debt burden. Syria's military says 5 people have died after what it alleged were Israeli missiles hit the capital Damascus and surrounding area today. Officials said a building was hit in the central Kafr Sousa neighborhood, killing 4 civilians and 1 soldier. The densely populated district is home to a large, heavily guarded security complex. Israel's military declined to comment on the strike. Israel frequently attacks targets in Syria linked to Iran and Hezbollah militants, but rarely acknowledges its actions. However, attacks on residential areas are very rare. Today's attack was the first since a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck the northwest of the country, as well as part of neighboring Turkey 12 days ago. And now we have a quick review of the top stories. Interview of ERi-TV and Radio Dimtz Hafash with President ERi-TV. Training on weaving to hearing impaired citizens. African states turned down on debt relief. Five killed in Israeli strike on Damascus. It was me, Salim Berhana, with the news for tonight. Thank you for being with us.